Good evening, everyone. I hope all of you are safe and your family, near and dear ones are all safe, whether at home or office, wherever you are. Welcome to this webinar on COVID-19 Challenge or Opportunity. Despite this unfortunate corona outbreak, Indian equities are on a roll, and Nifty index at 11,000, just 1,000 away from the historical high which we made earlier this year. The recovery has been very fast. The current leg of the rally has been dominated by none other than the market heavyweight Reliance. Telecom stocks, no doubt supported by Jio, Reliance, have continued to outperform. To gain more insights on the opportunities available in the current market scenario, we have with us Mr. Rahul Rathi, Chairman and Fund Manager at Purnartha Investment Advisors Limited. He has over 20 years of investment and risk management experience gained working with global financial institutions across the world in the big financial markets, New York, London, and Asia. He has a master's in industrial administration from Carnegie Mellon University and a master's of engineering in polymer engineering from University of Pune. He began his career as a risk analyst with the Global Hedge Fund. His interest and passion in the area of portfolio risk analytics led him to form CapMetrics, a research and portfolio risk analytics service provider to global hedge funds and fund of funds in 2002. For the last 10 years or more, Rahul has designed and driven Purnartha investment philosophy of long-term wealth generation, and his performance has been absolutely stellar. The Purnartha portfolio has delivered an annualized return of 37.3% for the last 10-11 years compared to a 10% return on the Nifty, which is a huge outperformance. Apart from his fund management activities, he's a very socially conscious citizen. He's an active contributor in society. He's a trustee on Pune Blind Men's Association's H.V. Desai Hospital and Lakshmi Narayan Devasthan Trusts. He's also an academic expert on the Kaveri Group's colleges. Without much delay, I would like to start my discussions with our expert today, Rahul. Rahul, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and sharing your insights. Before I start asking you questions, I'll start with the opening lines of A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the summer of hope, it was the winter of despair. Actually, the real economy and the stock markets are behaving like the Tale of Two Cities with completely divergent views. May I ask you to share your views on what's happening to the economy, what's happening to financial markets, and why this Tale of Two Cities kind of scenario?
Thank you, Venkat. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you today and share, views and have this discussion. We'll try and make this in English, because some participants would like to hear things in Hindi, and we'll continue this conversation. And happy to clarify.
Actually, Rahul, sorry, we can talk in English. It's okay. I think people will manage.
हाँ, चलेगा, ठीक है. तो अपन we'll try in English. तो आपका पहला क्वेश्चन था कि मार्केट्स आर रनिंग अप और इकोनॉमी में काफी विजिबल स्लो डाउन है, ये क्यों हो रहा है? इसका एक ही कारण है, उसका कारण है कि मनी इज फ्लोइंग टू द मार्केट्स मच मोर than what is flowing through other places. So it's a simple equation of supply or demand. और अगर आप सप्लाई और डिमांड की ये देखेंगे तो आपको दो इंडस्ट्रीज में ये दिखता है. पहले फ्रॉम 1990 टू राइट नाउ यू कैन सी इट इन द रियल एस्टेट. एक जगह पे आप रियल एस्टेट, आपने सुना होगा कि आपके दादाजी ने रियल एस्टेट ली होगी ₹1 में और आज उसकी वैल्यू, I will do it in English. So you have seen that real estate earlier was 1 rupee, now is trading at 1000 rupees to 5000 rupees. Similarly, huh, this is called as asset inflation. Or jab, when there is more money that comes in, you get asset inflation. If you look at Asian Paints, in 2007, the price to earning of Asian Paints was 37 or 32, which means, or 27 actually. It was 27 in 2007, which means for 100 rupees of earnings, you could buy the asset at 2,700 rupees. आज के तारीख में Asian Paints is trading at 77 times, which means for 100 rupees of earnings, you're buying that same asset for 7,700 rupees. What has led to this asset inflation is supply of money. Over the last 12 years, the quantitative easing that has happened in the world is to the order of $4 trillion. In the last 4 months, $6.5 trillion have been announced. So the reason the market is going up is because a large percentage of this money will flow into the markets. A. B is people are monetizing out of their land holdings and moving towards equities. And three, if you look at the Indian stock markets, 75% of the Indian stock market is based on hope, which means that there is no history to the business. But because they say कि ये हो जाएगा, वो हो जाएगा, ऐसा हो जाएगा, I will continue to buy. And a smaller percentage is based on data. In crisis, people move their assets from hope to data. And that is why also you see asset inflation. So आज के तारीख में what you're seeing in the markets is asset inflation going on because of supply demand mismatch.
So to ask you on this, so you are saying that there's money coming into buying assets. Is that, but if you see the FII numbers, they have been, apart from this Reliance, which is like trying to solve the India's deficit problem all by itself, the foreigners have been net sellers. So how do you, so where is this new money coming in? And is it retail, which we talk about, or where? So will you just throw some more light on this entire equation of money supply driving asset prices now?
So money supply driving asset prices, if you look at allocation to MSCI indices, what happened was in Feb 22nd, most FIs pulled out about 80,000 crores. And if you look at the indices, or when people buy stocks, which are active managers, so when you are thinking about the US, Venkat, what are you thinking about buying?
Index.
Or maybe
a FANG. Sorry, I would see.
Yeah.
Index or FANG. So Facebook, Amazon, Google, and stuff like that.
So similar, you're buying the best quality stocks that you know about. You know that these are risk free.
Yes.
Similarly, when FIs come to India, they are looking at the best quality businesses initially. And how do they define best quality businesses? How do they define best quality businesses? Is by talking to somebody within India, a CEO whom they are comfortable with. When I want to invest in the US, I will talk to a fund manager there or to a CEO there. So every CEO whom they believe and is trustworthy is where the first money will come in. So star CEOs is where a large percentage of that money is coming. And if you look at it from Feb 22nd to March 23rd, when FIs pulled out about 80,000 crores, and from March to today, they've put in about 35,000 crores. But if they had 80,000 crores to put in earlier, now they have 4 lakh crores allocation towards India because of the $6 trillion coming in. So the money supply will be volatile, but it will be unidirectional towards investments in India. There will be tactical buy and sell, but the amount will continue to grow if you take a 3-month, 4-month, 5-month period.
Okay, my second question is what you said about qualities. Is that why the entire market seems to be bipolar? There are some stocks which are going at, as you said, gave the example of Asian Paints earlier, trading at 77 times, and there'll be something which is not, which will not find a buyer at even 10 times. So if you look at even the markets, Reliance itself has contributed 25% to the gain or thereabouts. So is that the reason why there's so much of, I would say, dichotomy?
And this is not just India. If you look at the US, 5% or 5 stocks have contributed to more than 75% of the rally in the US too. So this polarization is across the world. So if you look at what the polarize and what is common across polarization all across the world, it is volume growth. So money, because of $4 trillion or $6 trillion announced right now, money has become abundant. It's not what the people are chasing, money or cash flows or yields. The scarce commodity in the world today is volume growth. The reason why you have unicorns in the venture capital world is also because they are also chasing volume growth.
So when you say volume growth, it means suppose the company X is operating in say industry Y. So long as the industry Y is showing volume growth, you see people coming and
the company is showing. So you look at Reliance, so much of money has come in a risky asset in the current thing is because they can show a certain degree of volume growth for the next 10 years, for the foreseeable future. And volume growth is a key factor in compounding. So the principle of maths in investments is compounding. And compounding really means time in the market versus timing the market.
That's a very interesting point you have made. So will you throw some more? Because my second question was linked to your own investment philosophy. So in the last 10 years, you've done extremely well. You have beaten the benchmark by a huge, I would say, margin. So will you share some more thoughts on your investment philosophy?
So ये investment philosophy जो है, वो is based on principles of mathematics. और ये principle क्या है? For example, if you take 26%, 26% growth every year, in 3 years, it's doubles. The rule of 72.
72, rule of 72, yes.
Yeah. So at 10%, it 7.2 years it takes. So 26% doubling every 3 years means 10 साल में it's 10 times. Venkat.
Yes.
In 20 years, it's 100 times. Okay, 10 times in 10 years and 10 times in the next
10 into 10, 100.
100 times. Do you know what it is in 17 years?
Much lesser, I guess, because it's that same joke about February 29 and 30.
So exactly. So in 17 years, it's 50 times because it doubles every 3 years.
3 years, yes.
So principle of compounding says that if out of 20 years you're invested for 17 years, then the maximum you can hope for is 50 times. On average, most investors are invested only for 12 to 13 years out of a 20-year period because there is elections, there is a demonetization, there is a COVID, etc. So the idea of compounding really means time in the market versus timing the market. So I said that, and I did this empirically by going into an HDFC Bank AGM and talking to 100 people who have been there for 20 years or attending the meeting for 20 years, and how many of them have made 100x? And the answer was 1 or 2 of them.
And this is random sampling.
Random sampling. So on average, and this is true worldwide, means I've crunched the data, because 98 people buy and sell. So I said that if I want to stay true to the principles of compounding or principles of maths and finance, which is compounding, I have to find a strategy where I'm allowed to give time in the market. So there are two things that I looked at for giving time. पहली चीज ये थी कि to give time, the company should be alive for 20 years.
Most
अगर
important.
अगर नहीं होगी तो my strategy fails. So I flipped the question and said कि what kills companies? And there's only one thing that kills companies is debt. अगर बैलेंस शीट पे डेट ही नहीं रहेगा तो you will never die. The second part was that if there is no debt, but the company's turnover is 100 crores and 20 years later is also 100 crores, I'm not going to compound. So the key is that you have to be relevant to your customers throughout the 20 years. And 10% volume growth means you're relevant at the margin. Agar volume growth raha, that means your products or services are relevant today.
Correct.
Agar volume growth nahi raha, so you might have some legacy customers, but they will go out.
Correct.
So volume growth and debt free are business principles. And everybody has different capability to manage those business principles. If you look at Jeff Bezos, his capabilities to managing volume growth at 30% with debt free. So debt free and 30% volume growth might lead you to 80 times growth in 10 years. 10% volume growth, I've done crunch the number, will give you 10 times in 10 years and 100 times in 20 years without any asset inflation. Agar asset inflation thoda bhi aa gaya, so you'll get a lot more than that.
Fair enough. So the key operating word is that look for companies with zero debt, and I'm assuming they'll survive for 10 years, 20 years, which is
and
to
volume
be relevant
growth
to the customer.
Matlab, at the margin, you should be able to address a pain point and you should have pricing power for that pain point.
Fair enough.
Okay, volume growth. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. So now I want to ask you, if you take one of your famous examples, which is Bajaj Finance. I think in recent past, when it corrected also, you wrote a communication. So will you share your thoughts on how you chose the stock? And many of the people have asked me a question, which is asking about your views on Bajaj Finance. So I thought this is a good opportunity for you to explain your investment philosophy and also share your thoughts on Bajaj Finance.
Correct. So Bajaj Finance has debt. Okay.
Yes.
It's a financial services
company, so it has to have logical debt because debt is raw material for it.
So it has debt. So the question was, should I be invested in financial companies or not?
Interesting.
So I looked at different countries with different GDP per capita. India's GDP per capita is $2,300. I looked at Brazil. I looked at Thailand, which is between $6,000 to $8,000 GDP per capita. And I looked at the US, which is at $60,000 GDP per capita. And at $60,000 GDP per capita, I looked at what is the impact of financial companies within their GDP. At $60,000 GDP per capita in the US, the impact of financial companies is to the tune of 12 to 15%. And out of that, 75% of the companies have retail debt, not corporate debt. Which means that $60,000 GDP per capita economy also needs a financial company, also needs debt. India at $2,200 GDP per capita will require a huge amount of capital for aspirations. So finance is going to be a part of GDP growth. And finance, both in terms of retail aspirations and also survival, is going to play a role. And at $6,600 GDP per capita, it was at 30% because there is a huge income disparity. So I said I have to be invested in finance. The second part is what are the right businesses to be invested in, which is what is a Bajaj Finance. There is a certain tenure. If you cross that tenure, the business is at risk. and we did a lot of analytics to understand what the risk should be. Once we defined our risk metrics, then we knew that any business that was before that risk metrics will always survive, because demand is far higher than supply. This is, if you look at Citibank over the last 40 years, it has been bankrupt almost 2.5 to 3 times. And it's always come out of bankruptcy very, very strong. And this is only because there is a play for finance in a certain GDP per capita. Within India, the benefit for a company like Bajaj Finance is much higher because it has an extremely good leader. And it has a promoter that understands processes. Both are very important when you build a large retail franchise. Use of technology and an extremely, extremely capable leadership. Both together make Bajaj Finance a great franchise to continue to buy.
So can I ask you another question on financial services?
Yes, please.
So you said that financial services, even at $60,000, is a relevant sector. So which is fair enough, because India is struggling at about 2,000. We have a long way to go. So apart from Bajaj Finance, is there any other way to play? Because there's a big private sector banks. Then you have a public sector bank, which is a bad word, so I can't say anything about it. And so on and so forth. So will you, given your data crunching ability, given your risk metrics, is there anything else? Maybe you've not bought it, but you explored it and then rejected it or something like that?
You know, there are multiple players that are attractive today. You know, so for me, the real question is what will, more than the company itself, which is the sector or the segment that the company is playing. That to me is far more important than the bank itself or the company. Because, so think about this, it's almost like a golden sector over the next 10 years. So think about this, in the 1990s, you bought a wrong IT company.
Yes, I was
it doesn't matter, because you can always shift to the right one and still cover your losses.
Yes.
The risk is not being exposed to that sector. So it doesn't matter whether you have made a mistake or not, you can always switch to the right one.
So my question is that which are the things you're looking at in financial services to play? Or do you just take your example, Bajaj is one, any other like life insurance, mutual fund, banks or things like that?
Yeah. I hold Bajaj Finance and Ujjivan.
That is the microfinance space.
Microfinance space.
So how come you have not looked at, say, mutual fund or life insurance? Because they also follow your principle of low penetration, high growth.
So life insurance may, I carry liability unlimited times, right? You remember the Wimbledon example?
No,
they
sorry.
paid insurance, they paid $100 million or they paid $1.7 million per year after SARS in 2004.
Yes.
As insurance. And in this year, they're collecting $450 million paycheck. So insurance, the problem is they underwrite for a future liability. And I don't know Indian underwriting skills because I've not seen them through a downturn to know what the underwriting capabilities. Anybody who writes future liability, to me, is a risk.
Fair enough. What about mutual funds then? You are a player in that segment, so in a different way, but you can see the industry tailwinds.
I see the industry tailwinds. The challenge in the mutual fund industry is the value they have to pay to the distribution. A reasonably large percentage is paid to distribution, and because it is paid to distribution, the pie is shrinking. Second part is today, because of regulatory limitations, no other player can come in. So profits are capped and they're left to the hands of the distributors to decide where to play within the top 5 or 7 players. So the extraordinary profits that come in are not there, and you can see in the results also.
Fair enough, fair enough. Coming to Ujjivan, so again, if I can ask you a very different question, is that look at Ujjivan. On one hand, the economy is in deep problematic situation, job losses happening, and you're giving unsecured loans to the bottom of the pyramid. I understand that the past track record has been very good. Ujjivan has a great management, so that box is also ticked. So how do you address this situation in a year where there's going to be so much of social dislocation? Actually, Rahul, you can bring your mic closer because your voice is now.
Okay, is this better?
Much better, much better.
Okay. So, two things, okay? On Ujjivan, they have learned from the 2016 demonetization, and their risk metrics in evaluating people is very strong. See, nobody learns from their successes.
Yes.
Everybody learns from their mistakes. And the company that can survive their mistakes and come out stronger are the ones that will succeed. Ujjivan's 2016 survival and the fact that they had to do capex during that time is testimony to the quality of the management. Second thing is, one thing that they changed after their 2016 demonetization experience is that they have added a filter that every person they give a loan to should have stayed in the same residence for 5 years. Now think about that, psychologically. It means that you have reached a residence of comfort. Because if I am transient, I will always upgrade to a better resident. To stay in the same residence for 5 years means I've reached a certain level, I'm comfortable there, and I want to stay there for 5 years. So they said that 98% of their people who borrowed from them have not moved out. There is a certain resident.
So much of repeat business.
So much of business is stable. Now the question is that is there an acceptable, what should I say? Acceptable dislocation of the businesses of their borrowers. And the idea is that, in the last 3 months, yes, businesses have suffered. But look at their business. The day the person who's borrowed goes back to his shop, it's at 100% capacity utilization. So their ability to bounce back on day one with 100% capacity utilization is very high. Think of a pan ki dukan. The day the owner goes and sits there, he's back at 100% capacity utilization. Second part, all these businesses, their demand comes from 1 square kilometer. It's a very, very micro market. And that demand, because they've been staying there for 5 years, has a certain quality to it also. The last part is that these are the guys who are going to continue to grow up in GDP per capita because they're far more hungrier than any segment that you and I know. They are the ones who are willing to work at 12 o'clock at night, are willing to cycle to go to Bombay at 3 o'clock in the morning. They're willing to do whatever it takes because they're not fighting for their wants. They're fighting for their needs, which is roti, kapda, makan.
So this dislocation we spoke about, I understand it will come back faster than what we expect. But you are they will come back for sure. But is that dislocation on a big picture threatening to derail the India story, or you are thinking that this is just a blip and life will become normal soon?
it can never derail the India story, Venkat. I'll tell you why. From 2016 to 2020, real estate was badly hit.
Correct. Even now it is hard.
Do you know how many workers were dislocated during 2016 to 2020 for the real estate? See, it didn't even register on the economic blip. So
no, my point is different. My point is that that was one sector specific because of whatever reasons. But now this is like you must have story of
that numbers were as bad or even worse, because we're talking 4-year numbers. Real estate employs a lot of people, Venkat.
No doubt. Real estate, I have a different theory on real estate, which I'll keep it for some other day. But because of the linkages and employment it generates. But the point is, suppose this is a big.
So let me give you a different data.
Once again, I'll rephrase my question. It's a big dislocation. There is, as you said, these are people fighting for roti, kapda, or makan. So first they'll take care of the roti, and then they'll take care of the bank loan.
So the guys whom they lend to, if they stayed 5 years in the same house, they are beyond roti. Migrant workers shift every month to every year from a location. They share beds, what's happening in Dharavi. 12 hours you stay, 12 hours I stay. For people staying 5 years in the same house with families, they're already stable. What I'm saying is that you're talking about, so there is...
Once again, just hold on. So my next follow-up question is as follows. So according to you, this entire fear about corona pandemic caused retail defaults is over-exaggerated. This is my big picture question.
So, okay, the time and less than 3 months, people in the default category at the bottom of the pyramid will be on their good behavior within 3 months, because their ability to bounce back is much higher. So, and here's another data point for you to think about this. I met a family whose house was destroyed 2 times in 10 years because of a cyclone. And they bounced back. Think about a house being ravaged. This time, their house has not been ravaged. They have not lost every belonging that they have.
So there's one question which is related to Ujjivan. Is that there's somebody asking whether you played it through the holding company or the operating company? And
holding company.
Okay. So that answers the question. Now coming to my next question, your next big investment is DMart. So my question is very simple. DMart, we see the entry of Big Daddy, Reliance. So how do you think the entire dynamics will play out? And you know how impact of Reliance on any sector they enter?
Venkat, there is a different decision making in B2B and B2C. Okay, so think about a B2B sector. Decision making is centralized. Think about a B2C sector like Hindustan Unilever or an Asian Paints. It's all about decentralized decision making, because you have to win the small fights. You don't have to win the battle. So you are expecting centralized decision making to make a huge impact on a decentralized sector business. And that to me is yet to be seen. A lot of the businesses which have centralized decision making have never ever been good at decentralized decision making. And if you look at B2C businesses like the Nestle's of the world, the HULs of the world, they've been able to survive for a much longer period than centralized decision-making businesses. I think it's very difficult to dislodge DMart because of their decentralized decision-making. Very, very difficult. Centralized decision-making, I think, so the challenge that Reliance faces is centralized decision-making. And that, I think, is very, very different. And India is different in terms of its delivery of food. Do you know how Domino's delivers in slums like Dharavi?
Please share.
It does not go to the address. It says I'm standing under this street light opposite SBI ATM. You can't go to somebody's house. You have a common point where it's delivered from. And 35 to 45% of India lives that way. It's very difficult to say, oh, why don't they go digital, etc., because the segments itself are different.
So the 10% growth hypothesis of DMart is not a question, but at what valuation? Given the fact that you're a data scientist, you have done
Great
all
question.
kind of...
So great question. So the question, let me generalize the question to saying that there is a very, very good company that meets my business principles, but it's extremely valuable. Versus there's a company, so should I compromise on business principles for valuation? Because they have two legs and the third leg is management. Okay.
Yes.
So see this, so if I don't make a 10x in 10 years, so let's take DMart for example, trading at 100 plus times valuation. Okay. What will be the valuation 3 years later? 50 times. So instead of a 10x in 10 years, I'll do a 10x in 13 years. I'll do a 100x in 23 years. ITC. So 10x in 10 years, 100x in 20 years, 1000x in 30 years. If you take the right period, it did a 1000x in 35 years. My point is I want to reach the 10x goal. It's like a marathon. Instead of 10 years, I'll take 12 years to reach. मेरे को कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. But any other style, if I compromise on my business principles, I'm never going to reach the 10x.
So fair enough. You're saying is that in that opening remarks you made that you're looking for companies which are zero debt, capable of growing at say 10% or 15% at the margin. You will focus on that and valuation.
Volume growth at the margin.
Volume growth. And so you're not so bothered about the valuation. It's 100 times, so be it. At best, holding time will change.
Yeah, time will help me reduce it, no? So I bought at 600 rupees in 2017 or at the IPO. For me, at that time, it was expensive. At 50 times or 60 times.
It's become more expensive now.
So you get asset inflation for good companies because there's so much money chasing it. You know, the idea to fight asset inflation is a fallacy today. If you're going to fight asset inflation, you're not going to... There are two legs to my strategy. I have asset inflation because I have good quality businesses and I have earnings growth. Why should I shut down one engine of my valuation growth?
I have a corollary to that. You started that this is a life in which $6 trillion of liquidity has been pushed in the system. So that is driving asset growth. So this will not continue for lifelong because maybe we are living in unprecedented times, so this 6 trillion will come. So how will your investment philosophy change? Not change in that you will not get the benefit of asset inflation.
Because earnings growth, no 10% volume growth anyways is there. Na? The world growth is 1%. India is at 5% today and minus 5%. Anyways, I'm 2 times GDP growth of the best country in the world. Over a 10-year period. 1% increase is a phenomenal difference. And 10% volume growth means 20% operating cash flow growth. 5% volume growth, which means 10% operating cash flow growth. So profit growth is phenomenal. And Venkat, you've seen IIFL history. There are always 2 to 3 years in a 11-year period where you hit a 6.
Yeah, if you bat long enough, you'll get one ball.
So you have to ensure that the volume growth is 10% for only 70% of the time. 30% of the time, the environment gives you the chance to keep on hitting sixes.
That I
Here's
agree.
another example for the same thing, Venkat. 75 to 85% of the returns are generated in 15 days in a year.
That statistics is, yes.
So the point is you have to stay invested for those 15 days also. And every quarterly you get a earnings bump up. There's no better way to play those 15 days, which become 20, 21 days.
Second, we discussed about, you talked about recruiting a person to do market research and talked about how you analyze companies based upon their advertising campaign. And we discussed briefly about ITC. ITC is a unique company because on all parameters, it does not look expensive. And I think cigarette smoking will continue in the country, maybe at some percentage. I've not checked the numbers. So will you share your investment philosophy on how the way you explain to me how you're looking at ITC? And I'm sure most of our viewers will be very interested in knowing your the way you analyze companies.
No. The objective was to share that
multidisciplinary approach to investing.
Yeah. So we were analyzing, and this is the conversation that Venkat was referring to. We were analyzing ITC, and I told him that they have currently started a Make in India campaign. And I hope a lot of people have seen that Make in India campaign. And within the research team, we were discussing whether the Make in India campaign is for business impact or for political impact, given that government or excise determines a large percentage of outflow from cigarettes, and hence whether it was focused to the government or towards economic, which is the consumer. So there are different factions, and people with different skill sets get different ideas, and they come together as a team, and then you can have a qualitative discussion.
Very interesting. Actually, that brings your, is it because you've done so much work in data sciences that you have this multidisciplinary approach, or it's just you picked along the way?
No, I was always, I have gotten a lot of success because of data. So I started my company with 1 lakh rupees capital, and because services, people, because of my data skills, gave me work, gave me business, and that's how it started. So I was successful. So I always relied on data to make decisions. You know, there are different people who have different skill sets. Some people get some things faster than I do. And then we come together, and data has to prove that yes, whichever hypothesis is there is playing out.
So coming to this consumer durable space, which I think again one of your investing companies. So there's no doubt about consumer durables. I think whichever parameter you look at it, India is quite underpenetrated. So the reason was again because of volume growth, irrespective of the valuation.
Not only that, the sustainability of volume growth. So think about this, right? When I invested in Whirlpool, it was
my question is, sorry, I want to ask you what made you choose Whirlpool and not say something else.
So think about washing machines and, you know, refrigerators. As women join the workforce, you know, it's very difficult for you to expect them to work for 8 hours, come home and wash clothes for 3 hours. So Whirlpool is a play on reducing the effort value of a woman in the house. Nobody wants to wash clothes for 3 hours, boil water, wash clothes. So it was a very easy pick for me. As GDP per capita grows, the first thing I'm going to do is reduce my labor anywhere, because if I'm going to office and then coming back home and then I have to do all those things, that itself becomes a huge cost. And hence I chose Whirlpool, because everything reduces your effort tremendously. So it's a play on effort. So consumer durables is a play on effort. If I didn't have those durables, my effort in terms of time, energy go higher.
So the other question, which are the new emerging themes in the markets you are looking at or you think will play out, especially in a disrupted world?
I think multiple emerging themes will play out, but the one that I'm very, very bullish on is the fact that, today, if you look at the house, the highest spending today was in the bathroom. If you look at rupees spent per square feet, and if you look at if you look at any South Bombay or any posh area in any city, you will find a display of a prominent toilets, accessories thing, whether it's faucets or other things. I think people will shift from the toilet to the kitchen. I think now the maximum spending per square feet will be in the kitchen, because number of transactions in a day are far higher than in the kitchen than in the toilet.
Fair
Earlier,
enough.
when I used to come home from office, my time, I used to think the toilet is the most important thing because it gives me some me time. But now, once I know how much effort goes into the kitchen, my spending on the kitchen is going to improve dramatically. So I see a theme on kitchens. I see a theme in our business, wealth management and advisory. I think is a golden theme. If we can really help solve working people's investment problems, I think there is a huge amount of money to be made.
So how will you play the kitchen theme?
Oh, there are multiple players. One of them is Whirlpool, but
Fridge.
packaged foods is another way to play it. Kitchen equipment is another way to play it. Food, so higher value. So, there are multiple things within the kitchen where you can play it. And it's a huge industry. So, food consumables currently are 30 rupees a day. And local brands will be a big thing. I'm playing it through DMart in some sense. But there are multiple ways to play it.
And coming to your this cash in your portfolio, why do you hold so much cash?
The idea really is to buy a business which has great leadership. And for us, we spend a lot of time evaluating everything. And sustainability of the pain point is something that we look at also very critically. It's not true that there are only 5 good businesses in India. There would be 10, 15, 20 good businesses within India, and some of them are just being listed also. Our endeavor is to invest that cash in businesses that we believe will be long-term compounders. We don't want to do anything short-term. So volume growth at the margin, as well as debt-free pricing power, is a critical element, and we need to evaluate those. And there are some businesses that are just getting listed, could be sunrise businesses that could continue to do well. Hence, there is cash. The second thing is, in 2017, in 2018, there was the IL&FS crisis. Remember IL&FS
Yes,
crisis?
IL&FS, everybody remembers. Yes.
Yeah. So in the IL&FS crisis, we were invested 100% and we had Maruti. And we sold off Maruti in December. or sorry, in April. We sold off Maruti in April. So with 65% of the portfolio, we outperformed Nifty by 10% in 6 months. So from the top, we were higher. Our drawdown was 28%, and within 1 year, we were up 10%. While Nifty's drawdown was 14%, and it was up about 3 or 4%. So the idea was that if you have what Warren Buffett says, if you want to beat an index, it's not about what to buy. It's about what not to buy. Mistakes cost you much more than your successes. Cash doesn't hurt you if you've got the right compounders. We were never hurt by cash because we were always on the earnings growth. But if we made a mistake, that would hurt us much more. So we want to avoid mistakes at any cost.
So you have cash on the portfolio to keep powder dry, so that you get an opportunity to buy, so you don't have to rejig your portfolio.
No, we had kept the cash because we are identifying new businesses, and soon as we get the opportunity to complete our due diligence, we will buy them. Okay. Today we can't get an opportunity to complete due diligence because things are closed.
The other thing is that about a product which has got huge demand in India, which is real estate or housing, or whichever you look at it. So what's your view on real estate, housing? Affordable housing, which is a very fancy and buzzword.
I don't think affordable housing is profitable, but really my thing is that this work from home theme means that people have gone back to Sangli, Sholapur or smaller towns. A family for 4, husband, wife are 40, 45 years old, staying and commuting 3 hours versus saying that in Sangli we are living with our family. So I think what the biggest benefit would be is that beyond the top 10 cities, things will start growing because people by choice will want to live there. Nobody wants to commute for 3 hours, 4 hours. And I think is the biggest benefit also, that are beyond the top 10 cities, GDP growth was not contributed by the smaller cities. Now it will be contributed by the smaller cities. And I think housing there will grow. The second thing is people will upgrade. So think about somebody who's rich in Dharavi. Used to say that I want to live in Dharavi because my parents lived here. I am comfortable. I have a community. Now with COVID, his thought process has changed, right? He says, I don't want to live in a chawl. I want to upgrade because there's a fear to my life, to my parents' life.
So upgradation and growth in tier 2, tier 3 cities. Interesting. And one just housekeeping question. What's your view on the rebound in the macroeconomy? Which alphabet from the alphabet soup will you choose? U, V, W, these kind of theories of recovery going around, right? V-shaped recovery, the U-shaped recovery, and so on and so forth. So what's your view on the macroeconomy outlook?
So, while I say that it will be V-shaped, but it doesn't really matter, Venkat, because, when you talk about this, V-shaped, U-shaped, W-shaped, you're already defying the principles of mathematics, which is compounding. When you talk about a W-shaped, let's say you talk about a W-shaped recovery, which means, are you going to book profits and stay in cash? So this is exactly the problem why people don't create wealth. It's because they talk about U, V, W, they convert themselves to cash, they miss out on those 15 days that create wealth, and you have lost out. Nobody can predict which those 15 days are this year, which will create a 40-50% uptick. The point is you have to stay invested to benefit from this. And if you're not invested, you'll never do well. Venkat, I'll give you another example for the same thing. So let's say, we at IIFL are capable of advising clients. Let's assume that we are like Sachin Tendulkar of the investment business. If I am Sachin Tendulkar, will I say that I don't want to play at Parth wicket because it's bouncy?
You can't say that.
As a capable person, I am looking to play on tough pitches and learn from them. I'm not going to try and avoid tough pitches. I'm not going to try and avoid a swinging ball. There's a fallacy in the investment business that you've got to avoid everything. You got to learn from these things by playing through them. I don't know any successful batsman or bowler who said, I will not bat on tough pitches. Why is it any different for us? So this UVW shaped recovery is copping out in some sense to say that, yaar, we don't know kya hone wala hai, let's cop out. If you stay true to the principles of maths and say, boss, we know we have invested in good businesses, we know they will recover. From 2016, we have seen this is the third crisis we are seeing.
So if I can conclude, so your message to the investor is that timing is not worth the effort. Time in the market is more important. Continue, buy good business, which is low debt, volume growth of 10% or more, and sit tight for 10, 20, 30 years. You'll become wealthy.
Yes, and you will be able to deal with the volatility through knowledge that's there. You'll be able to deal with mistakes. You'll be able to deal with risks. So you'll be able to deal with volatility, both internally created through mistakes as well as external, like Corona.
Fair enough. And with this, I think your advice to the investor also, there's one question I wanted to ask you, but this is covered by you because somebody's asked how the market will perform next 2 years, ups and downs expected. So for that, your answer is don't bother, don't waste your time. Buy a good company, good business, and sit tight for the cost, for the money to pour in.
I think, yeah, I think Venkat, the whole world is going to be with us. So why should the Goras make money on H? So think about HDFC Bank over the last 20 years and look at the FII shareholding.
We gave that example in our one financial literacy conference where HDFC is the no-brainer stock and it's a foreign bank.
Yeah. So I think, I really think that all of us have our time and our money on our balance sheets. If we separate our time and our money, we will be far richer to do what we are really good at with our time, and our money will earn money.
And one last question which has come, which is interesting, is about China. So please, what are your views on China and likely impact?
I think the impact on China for the short term will be a thing of distrust because of their political thing. But as a business, I think they will figure out their political equilibrium, and China still will be a force over the longer term. But we will have to separate the current sentiment from a longer sentiment. And I say this in all seriousness because HIV is also a virus. AIDS is also a virus.
Yes.
And I was tracking consumer behavior during the first 6 months of HIV and 2 years later. And people moved back to normalcy. There was no difference in people behavior 2 years after HIV came in. So, certain trends are very, very transient, and the structural trends are very different from what you see in transient trends.
And one last question, again, interesting question. Now Reliance has become debt-free. Will it be a part of your universe to examine?
So the longevity of Reliance will depend on distributed decision making. which is consolidated right now? I don't know. So you tell
Basically,
me.
your question is that your point is that it's a lot to do with management and how they operate rather than.
So volume growth will come. So do you remember that, Venkat, we used to use Nokia and BlackBerry at one time, and before that was Palm?
Yes,
Again, distributed decision.
I've not used Palm, but I've used the BlackBerry part of it, BlackBerry and Nokia.
Yeah, it's all about consolidated versus distributed.
So thank you so much, Rahul, for your time, sparing your time and sharing your views and being candid as usual. So on your behalf, on our client's behalf, I thank you for sparing the time. And I just want to conclude, the key takeaway for me is look for companies which are zero debt, which show 10% volume growth and hold on for 10, 20, 30 years. You will create wealth. Don't waste your time thinking about market volatility. Don't waste your time thinking about China, COVID, Reliance, and stuff like that. Once again, thank you so much, Rahul, for your time, and I really appreciate you taking time and answering all the questions.
Thank you, Venkat. It's been a pleasure to be with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.